Next up, we are going to work on our girts, here and here and here, and our doorposts. These are pretty much the same as the other joints that we've done in this series. The only major difference, I suppose, would be that we have a number of barefaced tenons, and the barefaced tenons are the ones similar to the corner braces that only have a tenon cut on one side. So it just makes things faster when we only have to cut the tenon on one. Let's see if I can get this over here correctly. On one side, like this. So barefaced tenons for the girts and for the doorpost. And then we also go back to this idea of reducing the timber to get a measurable size within a timber that may not be uniform. So we're going to come in 5.5, and this section here will absorb any of our variance in the timber. So we're just going to get started cutting these to length and then starting on the tenons. Oh, one other thing too here is that these girts are 4x5s, but because we may have variance again, we're going to reduce the vertical, the 5-inch side, to 4.5. So that's what this little reduction is right there. That way we have a known height to fit into our mortise. Let's take a look at how the joints are cut for the doorposts and for the tie beam. There's quite a few different reductions and places that we have to pull our measurements from. So the 4x5 doorposts, unlike the girts, we have the doorpost now with the 5-inch side horizontal or flat with the surface of the door. 4-inch side goes in, and so then we're going to get our housing up here by pulling a measurement off of the outside. Oops. So the outside of the timber is 20 inches, and then we're going to make a 4.5-inch housing, which is going to give us 15.5 inches here. And then pull down from the top, we're going to pull down 5.5 inches. Let's look at what the joint on the inside looks like. This is another one of those reduced housings for a bareface tenon. So our bareface tenon is 1.5 inches from, it's 1.5 inches thick, but because our reference face is out here, this is where we're going to put siding on. We're going to pull our measurement from the outside, so we're going to come from the outside in 2.5 inches and then 4 inches, and if there's any excess, we'll have to trim it off on the outside so that this surface is flush with this one here. Then for these little itty bitty girts down at the bottom, we have, coming in from the doorpost, 4.5 again, and I think it's the same here on the outside. Oh, this one might be 5.5. Yeah, this one's 5.5 on the outside. And then our positioning of this in terms of height, it just is important that they don't line up at the same height as these skirts on the outside, because we would take a lot of timber away from the same section if we line them up. So we'll just take a measurement from the bottom, and let's see what this is set to. Set to 30 inches and 25.5 to the bottom of the housing. On the bottom of the post, the door posts, we're just making a tenon that will just sit down into the floor beam right here. These are the barefaced tenons for the top of the doorposts. They're the same for all of the girts as well. So what we have is, this is reduced to 4.5 to get a known dimension. And then from the front, the reference face, we are 2.5, and then whatever we come up with, close to 4 here. And the tenon is just under 3 inches deep. So we have a bunch of these to cut now for the rest of the girts. So I'm just going to go through and cut one end on each of the girts, and then we'll get our dimension, our length, and flip them over and cut the other end. With the barefaced tenons cut on all 5 of the girts, we're going to turn our attention now to the other end. And the way we'll get that measurement is to pull from this shoulder right here all the way down to this one. So from inside shoulder to inside shoulder is 61 inches on this one. But remember, we have a 3-inch tenon as well, so we need to add another 3 inches. So we'll cut this one off at 64 inches. Let's look at what the 2 long side ones are. So from shoulder to shoulder on here, we have 85 inches, and again we'll add 3, so we will end up at 88 inches. And then these 2 short ones, these will end up being 10 inches from shoulder to shoulder, but we have a different joint that we have to do on this one, and we'll come back to that after I've cut the other ones. This is the girt that goes between the front corner post and then the door, and we use just our regular barefaced tenon here, and that works fine because we're going into a timber that is a bigger size. The door posts are the same 4x5, and so we're going to be joining in to the same size timber here. So instead of doing a barefaced, we're going to do a tenon down the center of this. If we did a barefaced, we would have just an exposed lap joint in the door, which we obviously don't want. So I know that my distance here is 10 inches, and then I'm going to add, I don't know if it's probably a 3-inch tenon. I'll have to look at the plan, but I think it's a 3-inch tenon, and we're going to center that. Well, center is going to end up being close to center, but we're going to pull a measurement off our reference face, which is this one. So we'll come in here 1.5 inches, have an 1.5 inch tenon, and then have whatever the leftover is, or something like that. I'll update you. They ended up being 1.25 inches from the reference face and 2 3/4. Also had to remember that we do the reduction here. So this is 4.5 inches now, the tenon's 4.5 inches, and we have a little bit of a shoulder here that's going to go into the doorpost because we're going to reduce the doorpost in thickness as well. So there's the girts between the doorposts, and there's the long ones. And then there's the one that goes between the back, right there. So these are all just balancing in place, but enough structure here to hold it up, which is kind of cool. Well, as I've done in other times in this build, I like to put the pieces together to make sure that things line up the way they are supposed to. So we've got our girts in place, and as we talked about, we use barefaced tenons on all of the posts. Anywhere that a girt is going into a timber that is larger gets the barefaced tenon. And then here on these two door posts, we're using a tenon in the middle of the girt, because a barefaced tenon wouldn't work on this type of a post. So next up, we are going to cut rafters on the sawmill. So I got to take some time and get that done, and then we will work on rafters and cut the pockets in the top of the wall plates. So we're getting really close here to raising this. This is going to be fun. Thanks, and hope you enjoyed it.